You throw another moon at me, and I'm gonna lose it.
Stark.
You know me?
I do.
What was the real reason why Tony Stark is the only Avenger Thanos fears? And what does it mean for EndGame?
All that for a drop of blood.
If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him. And there will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come.
Before we jump into the video, the April giveaway is this electronic Infinity Gauntlet. To enter is simple. 1, like the video. 2, subscribe and hit the bell notification. 3, leave a comment below if you think Iron Man has a shot at defeating Thanos in EndGame. Exclusive Avengers EndGame merch linked in the description below.
Not us. Come on!
How do we know that Thanos fears Tony or even perceives him as a threat? Well, the Russos state in the commentary that Thanos, once disposing of his armor, sees himself as a holy warrior, foregoing the butchering tendencies we see early in the film.
As Thanos moves forward in the film from this moment, once he disposes of his armor, he almost becomes a holy warrior, where he doesn't spend a lot of energy intentionally trying to murder people unless they're in some way a threat to his agenda. But almost no one ends up being a threat to the agenda except for Tony, who I think feels has this sort of existential connection to Thanos.
So once Thanos removes his armor, his actions show that the only person he sees as a threat is Tony Stark. But how would Thanos know that Tony is a threat? And how does Thanos even know of the great Tony Stark?
You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
My only curse is you.
It's also earlier where you realize this interesting parallel between Thanos and Tony. They're both aware of something from an early point and constantly having to deal with being smarter. Thanos is a futurist as much as Tony Stark.
Which is why he's aware of Stark from that original battle in New York as the person who undid the plan.
Why does that make him an undeniable threat to Thanos? The answer is...
Thanos is a futurist as much as Tony Stark.
First off, futurists are scientists whose speciality is futurology, or the attempt to systematically explore predictions and possibilities about the future and how they can emerge from the present. In Tony's case, working tirelessly to stop the incoming threat of Thanos.
I'm just trying to protect us. We future us's, and that's it. Just in case there's a monster in the closet, instead of,
shirts.
Thanos himself seen previously as a genius-level intellect who warns his own planet about their impending doom to no avail. It is his will to do anything he deems is the best course in protecting the galaxy that makes him an unstoppable force in his quest to hunt down the stones. So Thanos senses a kinship, not only in intellect, but sheer will in Tony Stark, having first got on his radar in stopping the Chitauri in the Battle of New York.
To challenge them is to court death.
And if there's anything that a futurist would find deadly, is allowing the competition to adapt to their own plans.
Futurist, gentlemen! The futurist is here! He sees all. He knows what's best for you, whether you like it or not.
Consider the following. If you ask most people what Tony Stark's superpower is, they probably respond thusly.
Yeah, big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
And while those traits are undeniably impressive, they only begin to scratch Tony's true potential. I would argue his proven superpower over time is to adapt to any given situation at any cost, which I will show irrefutable evidence of. Although slightly more subtle and technology-based, his power is much like Darwin from X-Men First Class. Let's look at some clear examples that have shown his rapid adaptations that go beyond any mere man. Over time, Tony has adapted not just to enemies, but also to any given situation, such as in the first Iron Man, he first adapts by dodging his then death sentence of shrapnel in his heart. Not only creating an arc reactor to keep himself alive, but also crafting a suitable defense in the form of the Mark I suit, and also a means of escape. an already extraordinary feat by any means.
It's impossible.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
Some more direct examples being the frosting problem, which he has with high altitude flight. He fixes the suit before his battle with Obadiah.
You had a great idea, Tony, but my suit is more advanced in every way.
How'd you solve the icing problem?
Icing problem.
Might want to look into it.
He has some aiming problems.
Am I balling it?
Which he adds auto missiles. His cannon won't stop the Hulk, so he adds bigger cannons.
You can't beat him hand to hand.
He loses in hand-to-hand combat with Cap and adds a shield, handblade, and a battering ram to his melee arsenal. Or being kidnapped and no one can find him, so he even fits Spidey suit with a GPS.
Oh, gotcha. Alright, Happy. Enjoy tracking this lamp.
Nearly freezing in Iron Man 3,
That's brisk.
he even fits his suit with a fitted heater.
I'd put everything in your suit, including this heater.
When he fails to save Rhodey because of not enough speed, he adds considerable thrusters. Okay, so we've proven that he is insanely talented at being a futurist that adapts to any threat at all costs. Enough to go from a mere man dying from shrapnel in the heart to going toe-to-toe with even a god. But what are his limitations, if any, for Tony's adapting capabilities? 1. He does have to see something actively to measure and counter its effects. An example being the Hulk.
Right. Don't mention puny Banner.
Although he never fought the Hulk previously, he had enough information obtained to counter the Hulk effectively by the time they fought in Age of Ultron. 2. If an unknown situation he encounters, he need only fail once to remedy this. Ultron being the perfect example, who in his own twisted way mirrors his futurist adaptation by trying to force humanity into evolving.
But, like the man said, what doesn't kill me just makes me stronger.
And while the rest of the team rightly lost their minds at this botched experiment, he was unfazed, and he was right to be. Once Thor saw the future, he knew also that Tony was right. His second time around, he'd create the arguably perfect vision.
You're unbearably naive.
This is what makes Tony Stark potentially the most dangerous Avenger. And it's also why Strange knew he had to allow Tony to not only face Thanos, but crucially adapt.
Why would you do that? There was no other way.
And here are the 3 main takeaways from his first encounter with Thanos. 1. Although somewhat amusing to Thanos with the drop of blood, for Tony this is a crucial piece of evidence that, yes, with enough brute force, Thanos can bleed. After Tony cuts Thanos' face, Thanos says,
All that for a drop of blood.
but remember the lesson Tony learns in Iron Man 2 from none other than Whiplash?
If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him. And there will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come.
2. Thanos used the power of the Infinity Stones in their fight, so Tony knows their properties and how to counter them. He's shown to do this in the cartoon with the robot arsenal left by his father, which could absorb the combined might of the stones, and is not off the table as something he creates in EndGame.
Robot can withstand my power.
3. Thanos pummeled and stabbed Tony. Although it sucks to be stabbed in the abdomen, it taught Tony a valuable lesson. Unfortunately for Thanos, his weapon of choice in EndGame is also a double-edged blade, which no doubt Tony will be ready for.
Yeah, my respects, Stark.
Now, you might say that the Russos have confirmed that the Mark 50 is the height of Tony's technology, and the Mark 85 may not be that much better.
So the journey that Tony's been on as a genius scientist is that, you know, the evolution of his armor, this is the best it's ever going to get for Tony. And it's nanotech. He goes to the cutting edge of what his mind can deliver. And it still is not enough to beat Thanos.
However, we've also learned post-snap he has other geniuses' research that was previously unavailable. From interviews with Robert Downey Jr. that he will go back to Wakanda, no doubt giving him access to the previously inaccessible bounty of vibranium to absorb kinetic impact, but also Shuri is dusted, so there's no doubt a bounty of info on the Mind Stone that she had collected before Vision had died. Plus, Hank Pym's famous quote, "Get their hands on his Pym particle."
As long as I am alive, nobody will ever get that formula.
And we get it confirmed that Scott Lang hand delivers the quantum tunnel van and that technology to Tony in the Avengers Endgame trailer.
That got really big.
Is this an old message?
Ant-Man, I know you know that.
If Tony cannot win the battle against Thanos in the future, you can bet he will use the secrets of the quantum realm to time travel and go back and stop him. This is what makes Tony Stark potentially the most dangerous Avenger, which Thanos understood. Also why Strange knew he had to allow Tony to not only face Thanos,
We're in the EndGame now.
but survive to learn from their encounter.
I hope they remember you.
And it's also why Tony Stark is the only man truly worthy of the title, the Invincible Iron Man.